All right, we're ready for another CIRF report. And, where do we begin? There's no eclipse, no full moon, no new moon. But there are some exciting developments in the sky astrologically. We got the sun going into Libra, representing justice and peace and harmony. But we also have a grand Air Trine, and not just one, but several. And then we have a grand water trine to sort of calm things down at the end, or maybe invigorate emotions. So we'll see how that works out for us. But we have some confusing things in the dream bot. We're going to go over that just a little bit. But it looks like the dream bot is malfunctioning. It requires the internet. And every once in a while, I haven't seen this recently, but in years past, we had a problem with certain dream sites. The DreamBot wasn't reading those correctly, and never knew really what was the problem there, but it resolved itself. So we're in one of those stages where several of the dream sites, the DreamBot just isn't reading the dreams correctly. So that's why we've got a big old question mark there. I'll show it. I'll show the results, but they're very questionable. And but in the astrology, we have Mercury going into retrograde, and that's going to make a total of 6 retrograde planets. We have a grand Air Trine, 3 of those. We have a brief T-square. This is a really, really brief T-square. And if there was a planet that I would like to request as a T-square, it would be Jupiter, because I'd like to be trapped in wisdom and optimism and positive. I would love that, right? Who wouldn't? Maybe the Scorpios in our tribe would hate it because they like to obsess in those negative emotions. Possibly. That's not a slight on Scorpios. We love them too. But for the Scorpios, we have a grand water trine coming up at the end. So, but basically the overview of astrology is, you've been habituated to conflict, pressure, fire. And this week is not that. And so it might take, some willpower to do the suggested solution, which we're going to talk about at the end, but mainly it's air. This week, astrologically, it's mostly air. Sun going into Libra, grand Air Trines, yada, yada. But the I-Ching says fire. So what's the overlap? Well, I'm going to explain all this as we go along, but what do you get when you have like a fire and you have air? You get a lot more fire. So you actually get a bonfire. So that's why I have, and then interestingly, the suspect DreamBot has a word in it that sort of supports this fire thing. And so I'm thinking that right in the middle of this astrology is the blue ring, which is I forgot. The song of the week. Go down into the show notes. Man, I should have mentioned this earlier, but you can listen to the song of the week as you listen to the report. If you have the technology to do it, if you can listen to 2 things at once, because you can choose the YouTube or the Spotify. But I highly encourage you to listen to it as I'm talking. You can pause this now, go hunt down the music, maybe on another device, and let that play. I'd play it here, but I'd get a copyright infringement thing. So I'm not sure that I decided not to do it, but it's the Ring of Fire, folks. And people are going to be clinging. The influence is wanting that fire back. We've been so habituated to fire and conflict and just assuming that everyone else thinks differently, just assuming that there's going to be more fighting and more conflict. And so you're clinging to it. And it makes, when you combine fire and air, you get a lot of fire, you get more fire. So, but from an air standpoint, from the mental planes is what this week is astrologically. we can take a step back and we can look at it from a distance. So anyway, that's where we get started. And I'll leave it at that. Let's get started on some comments first. All right. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe. Why? Because I'm going to read a little bit of the love, first of all. So Tree Astrology says, your voice is so comforting. I don't hear that, but I hear that a lot. So I just don't get it. I don't see that, but thank you. And your knowledge of astrology is so deep. Thank you for being you. Well, thank you. Thanks for that comment, Tree Astrology. Spiracy Girl says, great, just what we need, more lunacy. That was last week. Yeah. Did you get crazy? Did you feel the crazy? My clientele all had some crazy stuff over the course of this last week in that CIRF week. So from my perspective, the CIRF report was spot on. In Brian Adams says, love you, brother. Love you too, Brian. Thanks for the shout out. Pam says, well, it's really Terry. Terry says, let's see if this posts. Well, it does post. So Terry, I think you are shadow banned. I don't know if that's temporary, but keep trying. And Roberts J says, sending blessings to all in these miraculous times. That's very well said. It's a matter of perspective. I know we're all watching the news or alternative news or posts from Telegram or whatever your information source. And no matter where it's coming from, it's scary. It's potential. So we're all probably catastrophizing, but like Robert says, it is miraculous times because the universe comes balanced. So if you only see the big negative stuff over in left field, it's there. Just have to look for it. There's big positive stuff. And I think it's generally the opposite of what we're seeing. And I think the most opposite of what we're seeing is conflict, differentiation, segregation, discrimination, etc. So on the opposite end of that is togetherness, harmony, unity, and it's there. And I think it's growing, as you're seeing from the stadium chants, the stadium singing, just the togetherness of we don't have to be thinking alike. It's just we know what we don't want, and we don't want disharmony. So anyway, great stuff there. And I like that people from around the world are checking in from different places. So Knucklehead, I love that handle name. Knucklehead says, things seem oddly quiet here in Vancouver. The PM keeps threatening more draconian measures. Brian again says, California has gone down the toilet and talks about the recall vote and requesting audit, and people are angry enough, etc. And then David says, Melbourne, yeah, Australia. Melbourne workers working their shoes like chess. I think I understand that metaphor, but bottom line is make sure that you check out what's happening in Australia, because that is what's planned. Next, I think Canada, and then this is worldwide. This is the worldwide plan, what's happening in Australia. So you really need to stand up now before it gets that bad wherever you are. Australians definitely are standing up, but hopefully it's not too late. For a good source of information, in my opinion, is our Telegram page. And that is the link below in the comment section as well, where the song is. And just to give you a highlight where, Rita says, I'm so happy to be part of this truth community. And I agree that we have a tribe there, and we don't have to be thinking alike, but we just paste your information, paste your thoughts. This is an amazing ride. Teresa says, and ready for justice. SM, yes. And Chris says, Aquarius, watch the water. Yes, water is knowledge and wisdom, collective well-being, etc. So, and then Melanie says a collapse comes in increments. Watch the space program for our greatest advancements as these future forward and bring new energy into the collective. Stay positive. Expect the best from humanity. That's a very Aquarian thing. And we have one of our triangles, one of our trine, part of the trine is in Aquarius. So it's a big part of this week. Sherry says the next full moon in Pisces. Remember our last surf report? She's saying that it's going to happen. The next full moon in Pisces is going to be September 10th, 2022. She doesn't know if it's sidereal tropical, but I verified it personally, and it's tropical astrology, next full moon. So whatever happened in this last full moon in Pisces, for you individually, you might expect something similar than that next time around. It might be a foreshadowing of the future. It might have been a seed planted or something of the like. Now, the best comment, as evidenced by how many up arrows it was, Ravi had more than 3. It ended up being 5 or 6 up arrows. So clearly the winner. And she says, thanks for the report. Well, the first of many gut punches have arrived. The cheaters in California succeeded again. I am not deterred. Read everything, watch everything, listen to many opinions out there, but trust no one except your gut and intuition. My spidey senses told me that this was going to be a sad winter. Don't know what that really means. Now, I can verify for you that Ravi is very intuitive. And it's not that much different than what other people have been warning to. So it's a time to prepare now, especially for your temple. Make sure you're keeping your immune system high, good sleep, good emotions, good social interaction, but also good nutrition with lots of zinc, vitamin D, especially as we get into the winter. You can get vitamin D now that will sustain you into the winter. So anyway, well said, Ravi. Well, let's get into the dream bot real quick. Zoom in. See, there you go. You got 0% and negative percent on all these surges with extremely low surge scores. That's the first hint. Up at top, though, you've got baseball, failure, and camp. And the camp is, now obviously there's like a baseball camp, but I'm thinking of like tent and camping. And that can be a fire. Like, you got a little fire cooked to cook your hot dogs on and marshmallows and stuff like that. So there's a little inference of fire, but I'll just leave it here. You can take a snapshot of it and read it and comment on it if you like, but I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. Hopefully it'll resolve itself for next time. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes. The overview, as you see, you can barely probably make out all these red streaks here, and these indicate that these are all in retrograde. And then we add in Mercury retrograde right here, and that's about midway through the week. This surf week, remember the surf weeks goes from Thursday to Wednesday. It's 23rd to 30th. The sun right at the gate, so as we speak, is transitioning into Libra. And it's technically the sun is in fall, meaning that's not a metaphor. Well, I guess it's actually a good metaphor for the summer solstice, fall, but the sun is actually in a fall in Libra, meaning that the fall represents a least ease. It's sort of like the sun is falling down in Libra, just because the sun is hot and fiery, and Libra is more about the feminine aspects of us. And so, yeah, it's the least amount of ease. It's not really weakened per se, but things get harder for the sun. It's harder to find peace, harmony, but that makes us think more about it. So it's the influence as a result is more thoughts about peace, harmony, beauty, everything that Libra offers, justice, balance, all those things. So there you have it. And we'll talk about all those alignments. So here we are, Thursday, 23rd. So just a little preview. You've got Sun obviously going into Libra. We just talked about that in a fall. You got Mars that's already in Libra in detriment. And so what that means is both of these are slightly uneasy and weakened, and they're sort of like band of brothers. They're similar. They're fire, they're dew, they're yang planets in astrology, and they're in conjunction, so 5 degrees away. And so they're like sort of not alter egos. I guess it'd be more like not quite twins, but just brothers. They're brothers that are in a sign that they normally don't like to be in. But they have a trine over to Saturn. Saturn's in Aquarius. So ultimately what you have is you have a struggling ego, so it's not very easy, and you have a weakened doing activity, so weakened yang mechanism in yourself. So you have those two attributes about you will have the will have the easiest time with revolutionary status quo. Revolutionary is because Saturn's in Aquarius, and status quo is just Saturn. It's hardship, it's government, it's the way things are, it's the foundation, structure. So it's there's a lot less fight going on because these fighter activities in planets, Sun and Mars, are both weakened and experiencing a little bit more struggle. But it's going to be easy to go with the flow. But revolutionary flow, Aquarian flow, Aquarian status quo. All right. So I'm thinking that's going to be a really nice, positive thing. And remember, it's not just we, the people, that is experiencing this. It's not just people who watch the CIRF report. The people who want to enforce things are also going to be going through this energy. And so this makes it such that it's not easy to demand things of people. So sorry, not sorry. So anyway, that's just the preview. That's the most urgent thing that I'm talking about on Thursday. There's obviously more, but we'll talk about it as we go through the week. Friday, the 24th, the emphasis shifts more to Uranus oppose Venus. Remember that Venus is a little bit weakened as well. There's a lot of these inner planets, the faster moving planets, three of them are in a detriment or a fall. So it's like in a weakened state, and Venus is one of them. So it's hard to see peace. It's hard to get feeling peaceful, inner peace. Hard to enjoy harmony with other people. Hard to see beauty in things. Pessimism is one of the weak areas of Scorpio. But anyway, this opposition, which is double because you've got the moon conjunct with Uranus, so that makes this change very emotional highs and lows and changes in your material existence or perception. And you have to balance that out with, it's hard to see benefit. It's hard to see harmony and peace in this. So having to balance both of those out. Relationships are going to be susceptible to emotional changes on September the 24th. It sort of looks like a T-square here, but it's not quite. Still have that Saturn square Uranus thing here. So there's going to be more protests in that regard. There's still going to be this breakout of the need to be free. It's revolutionary. There's a revolutionary air, and guess who doesn't like that? Well, obviously people want to control, but people who just love the way things always are, they just hate change, and just it's not sustainable. So it's all that's changing. Now we get into Saturday and we start our double grand air trine, because the moon's making 1 point over here. Wait. Oh, okay. So there's a grand, let's see. All right. On this day, there's only one grand air trine, and it's Sun and Mars is 1 point, but mainly Sun, and it goes over to the North Node. Now, I had to draw this in because if we had North and South Node, we're going to have lines everywhere. It's just going to be way too confusing. But it's important enough to draw this line out because it's really close to exact. Sun, North Node. North Node is the future. It's in Gemini, so it's air sign. It is where we're headed. It's a karmic path forward. And the Sun, ego. Oh, yeah, ego in a fall, but can go to the future easily. So you can see your journey in advance right now. The ego can start looking and pivoting towards the future. And Saturn is the other point. So it's a grand air trine, Saturn, all the things we just talked about. And it has to do with that ego journey again, but it's where we're headed in the future. Very briefly, this is again Saturday, the 25th, a very brief T-square where you've got the moon. It's already progressed a little bit too far because you're 10 degrees away from Venus, but early in the day, barely going to have moon oppose Venus. So moon oppose Venus, and then Jupiter here is the T-square. So you got a T-square, which is a trap. It's a trap of positivity, wisdom, maybe long-term travel, maybe deep insight, spiritual insight, philosophical meanderings. That sounds like a very pleasant trap to me. I'd love to be in that trap, but if you're finding problems with it, you would go to the opposite side, which is more Leo. It's another fire. But I think I'd just rather, in this case, just stay with this grand air trine because it's going to be around for a few days. So as we go into Sunday, 26th, the double grand air trine, because now Saturn represents the corner of two of those trines, and then you have 2 points over here, Sun and Mars, and then you got 2 points over here, the moon and the North Node. So the North Node, the future, becomes very emotional, and not good or bad, but just very emotional. And the emotions are very logical, rational. There's a very rational approach to emotionally feeling into the future. And it guides your weak sort of ego apparatus as it transits in, further into Libra with the weekend due. So there's not a lot of doing, which is great because we're in air signs anyway. Air has a hard time doing stuff. So, but air can think and air can rationalize. These grand air trines are not just future, but very logical, becomes easy. You can start seeing clearly. You can observe better. If you have emotions present, they become almost characters in a play. You can see them playing out without getting all bent out of shape. The air signs are the observers of the astrology. And then, of course, you've got the Aquarian changing of the guards. Saturn doesn't represent change, but Aquarius needs Saturn or the status quo to be revolutionary, to be anti-establishment, to be free, to be insightful, knowledge-based, disclosure. That's the status quo that Saturn is morphing into. And it's in retrograde, so it's returning to a previous state. in this time. It's achieving, boy, what it looks like the old republic. And it's slowly as we grind on and on. But this isn't a grind, folks. If you can get out of these squares, so Uranus square Saturn still in play, still providing fire, and it's pumping up the energy and it's making you feel like you need to be involved in it again. Remember, we've been programmed over the past few days, past few weeks of just fire and nonstop pressure and conflict. Well, the conflict's still there, but it's much lighter compared to this grand air trine, double grand air trine. And so your tendency might be to still look for the fire. You're clinging to the fire, just like the I-Ching is saying. And this grand air trine is an opportunity to step back and just observe. If the fire's still going to be there, fire's still going to be going on in a blaze. But you don't have to be there. You can be in the stadium watching. Now on Monday, the 27th, there is still two grand air trines, but they're different now. The moon now creates a different trine with Mercury, now in retrograde. As just happens to be the same day that Mercury's going into retrograde. So thoughts, now we've got an interesting perspective. So one grand air trine is still that north node and the sun. And so that's making your weaker ego or a struggling ego pivoting towards the future. And you've got your thoughts sort of going into rewind based on your emotions. And Jupiter is the other point on that one. So again, easy to have a full complement of thoughts. So Mercury, although in retrograde, is still Mercury. So still communication and thinking, but the lower level. This is the logical level. And Jupiter is the higher level of brain activity, of sort of philosophy, PhD level learning. It doesn't have to be PhD, but you get what I mean. Higher level learning. If Mercury is grade school and high school, Jupiter is more college and beyond, master's degrees and PhDs. So higher level learning is Jupiter, and optimism. So anyway, very, very nice, pleasant energies of air, particularly if you're like my natal chart is full of air. I've got one Aquarius and two Geminis planets, my main planets and ascendant in Gemini. Well, Sun is in Aquarius, so this should be a nice, rational, observational week for me. Now we get into Tuesday and that energy starts to shift. You still do have the one grand air trine, so Saturn north node and the sun, but Mars is starting to get away from that north node trine, but it's still there. So the air energy is still there, but Moon has developed a square, a double square. So the weak brothers of Sun and Mars, they're in conflict with the emotions, and the emotions are back home. So that's nice, very nurturing. Your emotions are more, they can maybe susceptible to being guilt tripped and self-sacrificing, but it's not so much Cancer. Cancer is more of just taking care of home and nurturing others and feeling compelled to help and all that, maybe getting more emotional, crying more potentially. Then we have Venus trine Neptune. So that's the discomfort of Venus just being in Scorpio. It's like, what's wrong with me kind of a thing. This obsessive thought of what's wrong with me. Because it has to do with relationships. And if you're not seeing relationships, perfect right now, which they won't be because you've got Venus and Scorpio, then you're like, where do I go? Well, that easy energy goes to Neptune, and Neptune is escapism, drug use, fantasy, could be a mental escape. And this action is going to develop next day into a grand water trine, but we'll talk about that later. Venus has the easy trine over to Neptune, so easy escapism, but conflicted with Jupiter. Oh, great. So Venus already feels weak, and she is conflicted with optimism. So that's even weaker. Conflicted with higher learning, optimism, positivity, long-term travel. All that stuff is conflicted. So Venus is having a really hard time. Your relationships might take a hiatus right now. If you're having problems in relationships, give it a few more days, just sort of stay away. And if you're having loneliness issues, well, you're going to have to give it a go and get your connected time, but just dip in quickly, get your discomfort resolved, and then quickly, go. This is if you're having relational problems. Don't fight it. Go get some counseling, but even that's going to be weakened here with the Jupiter square Venus. So we all need our together time. So just, I wanted to say deal with it, but that's not a good suggestion. That's just not. Just realize it's hard to harmonize right now, and that's okay. Don't push it too much, but at the same time, don't avoid people. You really just be pleasant. Just give them a little bit more space. And it's not like you have to be the one that always sacrifices or any of that, but just be aware that relationships might have a hard time here. And we're talking about romantic and close relationships. We're not talking about world disharmony, although this is a contributor to that. It's mainly Saturn square Uranus, as we've always seen, just more continuance of that. So Wednesday, the last day, grand water trine. So the water now is the dominant force, and this is like dousing water onto the fire. Remember, we were out in the stadium just watching like good air trines, just sort of looking from the stadium from afar, watching the fire burning, watching the conflict. And now someone comes in and just douses a bunch of water on it. So grand water trine, you have the moon is home in Cancer, you have Neptune is home in Pisces, and you have Venus is the only odd woman out. She is in detriment in Scorpio, so weakened. So it's a weakened female archetype with emotions, with dreamy escapism, Neptune. So it's like it could be a wild emotional ride, first of all, but it might be the end of the fire as we know it. I mean, it's still there. So you got the Uranus square Saturn. But at a collective level, this might be sort of a pivotal area, a pivotal time energy. It's a quick one. It's like less than a day because the moon transits faster. But that energy with emotions, it could be like a pressure release. It could be like maybe a temporary reprieve from the fire. Maybe the water comes in and really just calms that fire down. It seems like it was getting out of control, and maybe something comes in and goes kaboom. Not kaboom, that would be more fire. It would, like, imagine like the sound of a bunch of water coming in and hitting the fire, like taking a lot of the fire out, possibly. All right. We're sitting at 34 minutes, so I need to speed up. If you're getting bored, at least before you cut off right now, go to the solution slide, because that's where all the meat is, and learning how to behave in this week. at least slide to the end before you quit. So here's the influence from the I-Ching: clinging like fire, clinging to the fire. Flames hang on to their fuel in order to keep the fire burning. Remember, we're like habituated to the fire, the conflict. So we're like hanging on to it, actually feeding it by clinging to it. So obviously we're going to do something about that. But clinging like the fire says, through the webs of our interdependence, we see that everything is related, each thing to the other. Awareness of your attachment to other people is the key that opens the door to knowing your true place in the world. No human is an island. And I noticed that, remember, the past few weeks have been journey of self, journey of ego. So we started with, it's the journey of your ego, journey of self, almost like a dark night of the soul. Remember that? And then we went into being the true part of you, or the true self, be true to yourself. And now this week is the influence is seeing your place in the whole. And so seeing you as part of the intertwining, intermingling, the string theory basically of human placement. So you're finding your dependence and place in the whole is what this hexagram is about. The fire is also a symbol of liberation. Paradoxically, by clinging to what is natural and appropriate, we gain inner freedom. Given perseverance on your part, this reading indicates success. In spite of challenges, cling to what is luminous in yourself, in others, in life itself, never forgetting your positive attachment to the highest good. When events seem foreboding or people seem oppressive, remember the good that has been and has yet to be. Holding to this idea is to cling to the power of light, the only force that can illuminate darkness. Wow. This is really powerful. I invite you to go back just a little bit and listen to that again and really meditate on that. It's going to be a powerful week. And leave it at that. So the line says, be merciful and reasonable about small imperfections. It's like punishment that is too cruel. Do you notice that both sides in just about every segregation right now, whereas we're being divided in infinite amount of ways as a humanity? Don't let that happen. But you notice if you divide it into two sections, each section, the extreme, is wanting the other side to die. It's ridiculous, but it's programmed in us. That's what's insane. They're manufacturing hate. And as a result, this line came up to warn us, hey, watch out for punishment or wanting to punish the other. That is too cruel. Don't do it. Don't fall into that trap, because it'll feed it and you'll be the one that's punished. So don't. Be merciful and reasonable about small imperfections. And notice it doesn't mean that you can't discipline, that you can't expect justice and Libra justice from manifesting. That's not what it's not saying that you can't have justice. It's just saying, be careful what you wish for. Don't wish too cruel of punishment on these perpetrators. That will just feed this fire. All right. So we're shifting now into the solution, and the I-Ching says great abundance. Now think of abundance as a behavior, not an influence. If this was great abundance as an influence, you would have possibly just wealth coming down, and this is more of a solution. This is what you have to do. So think of it that way. Abundance comes into full power when a group is unified. So that's part of your task, is to unify into the group. Remember, seeing your place in the whole. That's the influence this week, and the action. And the power of its leadership is at its peak. This is like the sun at midday, a high noon of clarity, insight, and progress. Whether this refers to a national cycle, a business boon, or a period of personal abundance, peak periods can be brief, so it is important to bale your hay while the sun is shining. During a period of abundance, it is skillful to show benevolence and to share the fruits of one's good fortune. Think of good deeds now as a hedge against scarcity in the future. That sort of speaks to your clan, your tribe, your community. Is you can connect with people by showing benevolence, but also as a hedge or a backup plan for when possibly things get super bad. Then they're going to remember that, and it's going to produce a hedge for you. So here is the conversion chart, and I went with the obvious. It's the ego journey. Had to go with the sun as part of that grand Air Trine, and I went with exactly when it was the closest to the North Node, closest to the perfect trine with the North Node, and that was Sunday about noon, Sunday the 26th. And so what we get is 46. That's the rave. And we get Virgo. So let's explore those. Look at this. Here's the rave. This is the third CIRF week in a row. And I put four fingers out. I meant three. Third CIRF week in a row where it's the progress of the self. This is the gate of determination of the self. Determination. This is the gate of serendipity, of recognizing the beginning of one's own body. The body is a temple, and that one is always in the right place at the right time. So that's one of the gifts this week, is serendipity, being in the right place at the right time. This can be a gate of discovery and good fortune. Look at that. I mean, it is just identical to the I-Ching. Good fortune. It is dependent on the determination of the self. And if you've done the CIRFs from the past few weeks, you're going to net more of this serendipity. That's exactly what this is saying, because it's not necessarily things that you can do. It's what you've already done. You've created like a karmic thing. If you follow the CIRF report, it says directly that you will get more abundance. Good fortune that may be perceived as a result of serendipity, but derives from effort and dedication. There it is. The sun at that time was at 3 degrees Libra, 50 minutes. That's integrity. And that line says the wisdom to secure one's identity through careful consideration of the restrictive potentials of commitments. The determination to say no to restrictive commitments. Boom. The rave represents opportunities. It's not necessarily an influence, but man, I wish a lot of people got to know this, that the determination to say no to restrictive commitments is the opportunity this week, according to the rave. All right, let's get into the summary slide. What is this? What picture is this? Who knows? Let's leave this for the comment section. Who knows where this picture came from? But what it represents is the ring of fire, and that's the fire that we've been habituated to. It might as well represent Saturn and Uranus in square for the foreseeable future. The way it's been for a while, a few months, it just keeps on ramping up, especially if you're in Australia. But you notice how we're stepping back from this. We're seeing this from a distance. That's what you're afforded with this grand Air Trine. Yeah, the air is feeding this fire, making this a big, big bonfire. But at the same time, that archetype of air, grand Air Trine, is able to step back and not look away and not ignore, but be able to see it for what it really is. And there's a beauty in it, but ultimately the energy is there, and it's the bonfire. And for the solution triangulation, we had the I-Ching. It says great abundance, show your benevolence, share if you can, share your excess, focus on the well-being of your tribe and family and group, even with Venus and Scorpio. Do your best to get along and the well-being of the group. Rave Mandala says determination of the self, integrity, good fortune from previous effort. So ching, ching. According to the rave, you are going to reap the benefits of doing the good, wholesome ego work or dark night of the soul from the past few CIRF weeks. The determination to say no to restrictive commitments. Virgo says, well, you guys know Virgo. It's the sidereal solution, so analytical and detailed and hardworking, even artistic. Sort of that energy is sort of fixing the detriment that you get from Venus and Scorpio. So artistic and being able to see beauty, that sort of thing can make up for that. All right, here we go. The friction, the overall triangulation, it says the friction and pressure continued and acted like a fire. And we got acclimated to it. We got habituated. We expected it. Some of us are numb to it now. Stop clinging to the fire. The ego journey pivots to the future this week. Rise to the mental planes of perception and knowledge. Notice the contradiction in the I-Ching and the rave. Push upward for yourself first. The contradiction is that the rave says it's about you. It's about determination of yourself. The I-Ching says focus on the well-being of your group. Well, so which one is it? Individual or group? Well, here's how you work that out. It says push upward for yourself first. This is the bigger picture anyway from the past few weeks. This is the next natural step in the ego's process. Push upward for yourself first. This journey recently has been a very individual journey for ego. Notice any excess or abundance. There's where you show benevolence with that excess for a hedge against scarcity. Who do you show that to? Well, your family, tribe, or group, right? Show that to them first because you want the well-being of your tribe. But watch out for being guilt-tripped when around others. Do not bend to your values and say no to restrictive commitments. This would be equivalent to peaceful non-compliance. The Virgo solution affords you responsibility, determination, details, reliability, but watch out for being overly critical, especially of yourself. And don't be too uptight. That's the Grand Air Trine allows you to sit in the grandstands without being a part of the fight. The Grand Air Trine this week is best experienced above the ring of fire, safely well above the fray. Fire is better enjoyed when it isn't a threat to you. Observe from a distance. And the caveat here is if you are in those areas that are more restrictive, well, the commensurate behavior is linear. So the more restrictive, the more severe the behaviors. That's how you say no. Sometimes to say no is not just saying no, as you can see from the videos on Telegram. It takes more than that. So just leaving it there. But take a step back when you can and observe and see the big picture. That's the beauty of that Air Trine, and it's most of the week, and it's a beautiful thing with that North Node in there because it pivots you towards the future and self. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's broadcast. Did you listen to the music? And who here has the answer to this? Where did that come from? I bet some of you were there. We'll see. All right, folks, have a great week. We'll see you next week. Bye.